I did respect him. I don't respect him anymore because he say I'm not gonna do what they want me to do and this and that. And
There's no chance. But then I watched it the next month. I was like, he actually did way better than I thought he would have did. But people forget JakePaul rostered Ohio State rostered, so he's tough. He's not as good boxer, as good skill, but he's tough.
JakePaul beat Anthony Joshua. That's insane. That's not real. That's not real in any facet. There was never a chance.
Look at what just happened. Canelo Alvarez absolutely ripped into JakePaul with his words right after the Anthony Joshua fight. And this wasn't some soft critique or playful jab either. He straight up told Jake to stop pretending he belongs anywhere near real boxers and to end this entire act right now. What really made Canelo's comments sting was how easily he brushed aside Jake's attempts to compete in a world that's completely beyond his reach. This was a clear contrast between true championship-level boxing and whatever Jake believes he's doing in that ring. Canelo made it crystal clear that Jake needs to stay in his lane instead of trying to imitate fighters who've sacrificed their entire lives to this sport since childhood. The message landed hard, but it was blunt and direct. Canelo didn't sugarcoat anything. He made it obvious that Jake's boxing experiment is a joke and that he needs to stop acting like something he simply is not. No diplomacy. No soft language. Just raw truth from one of boxing's all-time greats.
mistakes, right? But you need to do your best or do what you do, not try to be something else. Just do your best as a person. Sometimes it's enough, sometimes for the...
Dillian Whyte backed up what most people already assumed. JakePaul never had a realistic chance against Anthony Joshua. Not even remotely. But here's the part that genuinely surprised Whyte. He admitted he was shocked by how long Jake managed to stay on his feet. Jake showed real toughness, something Whyte believes likely comes from his wrestling background. That mental strength to take punishment and keep pushing forward. But let's be honest about what really happened. Jake survived by being extremely cautious, not by trying to win the fight. He wasn't fighting for victory. He was fighting to survive past the opening round. And this is where Whyte delivered his blunt warning. This needs to stop immediately. We're talking about broken bones, heavy damage, and brutal beatings that no amount of money or online fame can justify. This path isn't smart or sustainable for anyone's long-term health. Whyte was crystal clear. If he personally fought Jake, it would end very quickly. Jake has heart, no doubt about that. But continuing down this road only risks serious, possibly permanent damage to his body.
I watched it the next month. I was like, he actually did way better than I thought he would have did. But people forget JakePaul rostered Ohio State rostered, so he's tough. He's not as good boxer as good skill, but he's tough. You know, wrestling is a very competitive sport in America, and to be a Ohio State wrestling level, you have to be they're physically tough and physically strong. You know, so yeah, he was tough. That's why he survived in there. He did what he had to do in there. He got tagged with a few shots, and he did extremely well. AJ did poor.
In those situations where the fighter is that negative and had those kind of tactics, he went to ground a few times, etc. I don't think people quite understand it. It doesn't matter who you are, it's quite difficult. People expect AJ within 20 seconds to literally, with the first punch thrown or the first jab thrown, just to knock him out. It's not that easy, is it, when a fighter is kind of going in there to just survive?
It's always easier to beat someone that's coming to win than someone that's in there to survive, but they should have known that. They should have known that JakePaul is never going to come to win. But it's just mad that AJ couldn't cut the ring off. He just made him run. He couldn't cut the ring off and hit him with punches, and he was swinging and missing a few times. And obviously JakePaul was hitting with a few punches. I was like, I was surprised that I was surprised that it took so much runs to get him out of there. And then when he did knock him out, he didn't knock him out outright. He broke his jaw and stuff, but Jake was alright. He just sort of got up and just said, my jaw is broken. He didn't get swapped. I was kind of surprised. I was very surprised. Because that right hand was a big one. I thought, damn, okay. He took it and got up. So maybe Jake is a physically tougher and stronger person than people think he is.
I'm assuming you don't blame Joshua for the money being talked about, 40, 50 million, for doing that. No.
No. I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. I'll fight Jake Paul next if he wants it. I'll take that. But I'll go after him though. I'll tell you what, I'll definitely put him away 1 or 2 rounds. No way he's getting past that. Cause that's like that's such a big moral victory for Jake saying that he wins.
Canelo Alvarez also admitted something that caught a lot of people off guard. Jake Paul has genuinely improved since his early boxing days, showing better fundamentals, coordination, and toughness in the ring. Canelo acknowledged that Jake's progress is obvious when you compare where he started to where he is now, and that his dedication and work ethic deserve credit. You can clearly see Jake has been training hard, working with real coaches, and trying to build legitimate boxing skills. But here's the major catch. Canelo made it painfully clear that despite all that improvement, Jake needs to walk away right now. Immediately. He's already taken on fighters far beyond his level and is risking serious, potentially permanent injury every time he steps in the ring. Canelo stressed that continuing on this path isn't smart for Jake's health or his future. And realistically, Jake has already proven whatever he needed to prove. It's time to step away while he's still intact, before something truly catastrophic happens. Over the years, Canelo has consistently mocked Jake's choice of opponents, pointing out how he targets aging fighters or low-risk names instead of active, prime professionals. His comments reflect the broader boxing community's belief that Jake's fights are more about spectacle and business than real athletic competition. When jokingly asked if he'd ever fight Jake himself, Canelo laughed and said the only way he'd consider it is if Jake were 50 years old, maybe even older. That humor perfectly summed up how Canelo views the massive gap between true champions who dedicate their lives to boxing and celebrity-driven exhibitions built for entertainment money.
Hope he improved more and he do a really good job. Believe I say this and serious. I hope he doing really good job and improve in boxing and it's fine.
Do you ever entertain a Jake Paul fight?
Not right now. Let's see later when I have
Brendan Schaub pointed out something that anyone with basic boxing knowledge should already understand. Believing Jake Paul could beat Anthony Joshua is pure fantasy, like living in an alternate reality. Yes, Jake has surprising power for someone around 200 pounds, and that's worth acknowledging. But his skill set still doesn't come close to elite heavyweight level. The gap here isn't small. It's enormous. The difference in experience, fundamentals, and physical readiness between Jake and fighters like Joshua is staggering. It's like comparing a high school athlete to a professional all-star. Schaub made it clear that no amount of hype or online attention can close that gap. Subscriber counts and internet buzz don't translate into elite boxing ability. Jake clearly has heart and commitment. You can't deny that he steps in there and gives it everything he has. But once you strip away the marketing, he's still completely outmatched against genuine world-class fighters. Thinking he can compete at the highest level is unrealistic and highlights the huge divide between social media fame and true boxing mastery built over many years.
Anthony Joshua, that's insane. That's not real. That's not real in any facet. There was never a chance. There's never a chance. And the Jake Paul fans, and I was getting this a ton from DMs and comments going, well, everyone has a puncher's chance. That's an uneducated opinion. A puncher's chance, yes. If they're in a bar and Anthony Joshua's there at the pub and Jake Paul were to sneak up behind him and hit him in the back of the head or, in the side or something, maybe, even then, he's a little light in the ass, but maybe that's a puncher's chance. In a professional bout where a professional fighter at the level of Anthony Joshua is at, and he is going into a ring knowing and expecting to get hit, there is no puncher's chance when there's that much discrepancy in talent level. There's not, especially when the size difference. And some of you will say Jake Paul hits hard. To you, yes, to you. But also Jake Paul hits hard for a 200-pound man. He wouldn't even measure in the top 1,000 professional heavyweight boxers in the world as far as the strength knockout meter, if there is such a thing. It's not possible. So a lot of you were tuning in for saying, well, he has a puncher's chance. That's not real. That doesn't exist here. And now they could do this, but I don't think it's going to get the same amount of views, but it would set expectations. If when this fight was announced, Jake Paul's team said, hey, we're fighting Anthony Joshua. Who thinks we can last 8 rounds? Who thinks we can go all 8 rounds? Who thinks Jake Paul?
Brendan Schaub further explained why the idea of Jake Paul beating Anthony Joshua is nothing more than wishful thinking disconnected from reality. Sure, Jake shows decent power for someone fighting around 200 pounds, and that deserves some respect at that level. But his abilities aren't even close to elite heavyweight standards. The gap is massive and impossible to ignore. The difference in experience, fundamentals, and physical conditioning between Jake and championship-level fighters like Joshua is enormous. It's like putting someone with just a few years of training against someone who's devoted their entire life to this sport. Schaub emphasized that no level of promotion or social media following can bridge that distance. Trending clips and online attention don't equal elite skill. Jake's performances do show heart and effort, and that deserves respect. He steps up and takes risks most wouldn't. But realistically, he's completely outmatched against true world-class talent. That's just the truth. The belief that he could hang at the top level of professional boxing shows the huge gap between internet celebrity status and real boxing excellence that takes decades of dedication to achieve.
Your takeaways from the 6 rounds that we saw, presuming you watched?
I was impressed with Jake Paul. I thought that, following on from what we're saying, right? A few years ago, he was on Disney as a kid, acting up, and has decided to become a professional fighter. That takes balls, he's obviously striving to be as good as he can be. You can see that in the way that he moves, the way that he is developed in how he's punching and performing. But to make a 2-time world heavyweight champion that's still live, AJ's still got something about him, to make him miss in such an accomplished manner. All right, so at times he was jumping out and running around, but there were times when he was well in range and still making AJ unable to land a clean, solid shot. He deserves a lot of respect for that. And then the shot that actually finished the fight, that broke his jaw quite badly, didn't put him out. That shot he threw with serious intention has put a lot of professional heavyweights to sleep. He didn't go to sleep. He actually finished on his knees, didn't he? Laughing and spitting blood out of his mouth. So, like they say, it's a special type of crazy and a special type of brave to do it. But I actually, hats off to him, because he showed that he's developing some accomplished little skills in there to look after himself. The size difference is always going to fatigue him.
I know everyone will come with the idea that, AJ should just go in there 1 round and smash him to bits, and that should be it was a big ring, right? Perhaps he could have cut the ring off a bit better, but would I be right in saying that regardless of skill level, if you forget about that with the 2 for a second, if someone is on the back foot on their bike and doing what Jake was doing, it's difficult, no matter who you are, no matter the kind of separation in skill level.
It's a big ring, and you've either got to run at him and look like a novice yourself, or just take your time and understand.
Adam Booth offered a detailed and fair breakdown of Jake Paul's performance, giving credit where it was due. He pointed out that Jake actually made Anthony Joshua miss on several occasions, which is impressive considering the enormous difference in experience and skill between them. Booth noted that Jake's movement, positioning, and ring awareness had clearly improved compared to earlier fights, showing discipline and technical growth that hadn't always been present before. It was obvious Jake had been grinding on fundamentals and putting real work into his training. This smarter ring approach forced Joshua to hesitate at times and adjust his strategy, preventing him from landing clean combinations the way he usually does against lesser opponents. While Jake is nowhere near elite professional level, Booth made that clear. These moments still showed genuine improvement. They proved that with better movement, patience, and defensive awareness, Jake can make even top-level fighters work harder than expected and think twice before unleashing their biggest shots.
Paul wasn't so much moving laterally all the time. He was literally running. Look at some of those rounds. He was running. He was going north to south, not side to side. He was running. Anthony Joshua should have been able to cut the ring off. And the times that AJ had Jake Paul cornered, he couldn't get shots off. He wasn't going to the body. He wasn't using his superior size on Jake. I heard Nikisa Badarian say afterwards that AJ was leaning on Jake. Come on. Jake was leaning into AJ, falling into AJ, and that's why those clinches were taking place. AJ is purportedly one of the best heavyweights in boxing. AJ believes he's on the level that he should challenge Tyson Fury. That wasn't the kind of performance that makes me believe Anthony Joshua is still a high-level heavyweight.
Well, you're wrong again. Anthony Joshua didn't look great because he wasn't allowed to look great. When you're in there with a smaller fighter that refuses to engage, refuses to box, to fight, he's running. Think of Canelo Williams' school. Canelo didn't look good, and he got accused of not being able to.
Okay, can I just 1 second? 1 second. I knew you were going to go there.
Oh,
Williams' school is or was an undefeated 168-pounder with a deep amateur background. Jake Paul is a guy who lost to Tommy Fury with no amateur background. So don't compare the two. Don't compare Williams' school to Jake Paul. It's not the same thing.
No, but I can compare a man running for his life and another man running for his life. These guys didn't want to engage. They didn't want to try to win. Now, I told you, Jake Paul was going to look for one shot. That's the overhand right. And once he misses that, he's going to realize he's in for a long...
Sergio Mora shared his frustration after watching the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, explaining that it didn't deliver the technical display he had hoped to see. He broke down how Jake relied on very basic movement throughout the fight, mostly moving straight forward and backward without much lateral motion or angles. This predictable straight-line movement actually made it harder for Joshua to land clean shots, because Jake's constant retreat kept creating distance whenever Joshua tried to close in. Mora explained that while this strategy helped Jake survive exchanges and avoid severe damage, it lacked the complexity required at elite boxing levels. The absence of side-to-side movement prevented Joshua from setting proper angles and launching his best attacks, forcing him to reset repeatedly instead of cutting off the ring. Mora's analysis showed that while Jake displayed heart and decent defensive instincts, his footwork and ring movement remained basic and limited compared to seasoned championship-level professionals.
To go rounds, I wasn't sure if there was going to be a silent agreement. I wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that will spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why I said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it. But there was real parts, say that's the fixed part. That's the WWE part. That's where the people, and I'm with you. I get it if you want to think that. Here's why I picked rounds, and this is what I think I saw, and I know that in my mind I saw, was the factors that a lot of people didn't think about. 15 months off. There was going to be some ruts. There was going to be some hesitation. There was going to be some time. You get knocked out by Dubois. Freaking 15 months ago. There were going to be ghosts in the attic. I don't care who you're fighting. You get in the ring again. It's going to take a minute to exercise those ghosts. The rust. You want to call it rust, whatever. It's going to take 5-6 rounds to get rid of the rust. But it's going to, the doubt, the self-doubt, the being in the ring for the first time with nothing in between after being knocked out. That was going to be a play. And then the size of the ring, 22 by 20. It's usually 20 to 20 is pretty usually around average. And it's 22 by 20. More room to elude, more room to move around, right? I thought maybe go in there with track shoes. He didn't go with track shoes. He should have probably had better ankle support because he hurt his ankle a little bit. And that, he did. He rolled his ankle a little bit. So I thought those were real factors, physical factors, not WWE factors. Also, some of the other factors was that Joshua is not a fast starter. So here you got 15 months in activity, not a fast starter to begin with. Come on, you with me, people? Now you are, because now we already...
Teddy Atlas analyzed the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight with sharp insight, making it clear that his prediction of the bout going multiple rounds was based on boxing knowledge and strategy, not any suggestion of a scripted outcome. He explained that Jake faced challenges unlike anything he'd experienced before, both physically and mentally, by stepping into a completely new level of competition. Atlas said the fight required a level of focus and intensity Jake had never needed in previous matchups. He had to endure heavy shots from Joshua while also dealing with the psychological pressure of facing a true world-class heavyweight. This test revealed toughness, resilience, and adaptability Jake hadn't shown before, proving he could absorb serious punishment and continue fighting even when the outcome was slipping away. He took significant damage throughout the bout.
26, and I don't think he fights a ton in 2026. I think it'll be a very slow year for him. Look for those two guys as the main two he would fight. I wish it was Tommy Fury, but I doubt it. On the other side, I want to see him get back into boxing specifically, get back into committing to this, because there is a massive, massive fight that awaits him in Tyson Fury. It's far past time that it happened. If they don't do it now, they never will. And yeah, man, I don't really know what else to say on this fight. As far as, what happened in there tonight, I know on Twitter people are going to want their money back, or they're going to call it a bad fight or a sloppy fight or whatever. And then there's going to be people, celebrating Jake's downfall. That was always going to be the case. Of course, the first time he gets rocked, dropped, and stopped, people are going to celebrate like it's the 4th of July or it's their birthday or like it's Christmas. So yeah, expect that, but I won't do that here. I won't, because I respect the hell out of him for going and doing it, and there's not any normal people on earth that would have done it. I don't care if you say, oh, for the money I would have, you're lying. And there's not many pro boxers.
The commentator broke down Jake Paul's strategy in depth, explaining that it was shaped by his unique position in boxing. Unlike traditional champions who must defend titles and face mandatory challengers, Jake has the freedom to choose big-name, high-profit fights that generate massive pay-per-view numbers and online engagement. This control allows him to plan his career around entertainment value and financial success rather than rankings or competitive obligations. The analysis suggested that while Jake believed in his abilities, his approach in this fight reflected smart risk management and energy conservation. He focused on surviving, staying marketable, and positioning himself for even bigger opportunities in the future rather than risking everything in one night.
People will tune in, and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model. Right now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a two-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul, and we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age, to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there, there's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul.
The Joshua-Jake Paul fight was going to be rigged. These x-rays definitely tell a different story. So on December 19th of 2025, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware, Jake Paul fought the two-time unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua at the Cassia Center in Miami, Florida, which was streamed exclusively on Netflix as part of a major boxing event that was promoted by Paul's most valuable promotions. The ending result was Anthony Joshua won by knockout in the 6th round after Jake Paul was knocked down 4 times in total, twice in the 5th round and twice in the 6th round. Anthony Joshua landed 48 punches on Jake Paul, compared to Jake Paul landing about 16 on Anthony Joshua. And this is the second professional loss of Jake Paul's fighting career, dropping his record down to 12-2. Now, Jake Paul ended up suffering a double broken jaw during the fight and was taken to the hospital afterward, skipping the post-fight press conference, probably because he probably couldn't talk. But in his in-ring interview, he said, "That was crazy. I had a blast. I think my jaw is broke." Anyway, as far as his professional fighting career is concerned, as of December 20th of 2025, he doesn't have any new opponents that have been announced, and it's expected that his jaw injury is going to take 4 to 6 weeks to recover from. Regardless of how you feel about him, that dude fought a 2-time heavyweight champion and survived. And I think we can all agree that regardless of how you feel, that takes some